Welcome to Wisco Legacy. I'm your host, Corey Kundert. Today on episode 14, we have Jonathan Orr. Jonathan was a former Badger football wide receiver here, spent some time in the NFL with the Tennessee Titans and the Oakland Raiders, and now runs an incredible nonprofit organization called Athlete Transition Services. Athlete Transition Services focuses on life after sports. The transition from life after sports is tough for a lot of people, and so he's doing exceptional work working with colleges and universities and professional sports leagues and helping those transition to life after sports. As always, follow us on our social media channels, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. If you could rate and review us, that would be great as well. It's the best way to support us here at Wisco Legacy. Next week, I have Dusty Weiss. Dusty is the founder and president of PodCamp Media over in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's a fellow Monroe Cheesemaker alum like myself, and he's got an incredible podcast called Lead Balloon, which you can check out anywhere you listen to podcasts. So excited for you to get that out. But with all that, I'm really excited to dive into this conversation with former Badger wide receiver and current executive director of Athlete Transition Services, Jonathan Orr.
Hey, I'm Jonathan Orr, former Wisconsin Badger wide receiver and founder and executive director of Athlete Transition Services, and this is my Wisco Legacy.
Hi, I'm Corey Kundert, the host of Wisco Legacy. On today's episode, we have Jonathan Orr. Jonathan is a former Wisconsin Badger wide receiver and currently the founder and executive director of Athlete Transition Services. Jonathan, welcome to Wisco Legacy.
Man, Corey, thank you so much for having me. I've been excited the past couple of weeks since we put this on the calendar. So I'm so glad I get the opportunity to be here with you today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for doing this. All right. So I want to start with the early years. You grew up near Detroit. Can you talk about growing up around there?
Yeah. So I'm from the northwest side of Detroit. And so the neighborhood I grew up in was rough, to say the least, surrounded by a lot of craziness and negativity and violence. But thank God, my brothers and I, we have two great parents who, in the midst of everything that was going on, they provided a loving, stable, nurturing home. And my dad was real intentional about making sure that my brothers and I were exposed to things outside of our neighborhood and gave us, as best he could, experiences just to show us that it's more to life than what was going on on our street. And so one of the things he did was introduce my brothers and I to sports at a very young age. And it just so happens that football is a sport we all gravitated to mostly. And about the age of 9 is when I started playing organized football. And you couldn't tell me that I wasn't going to the NFL and have a 20-year career like my childhood hero, Jerry Rice. And so sports was a huge part of our life growing up. It really kept us out of the streets and kept us focused on something positive.
Yeah. What was it about football that really got you?
Well, I think it allowed me to utilize like my natural gifts. So I was always I always had some speed, and so and catching came fairly easy to me as a kid. And so I'm like, man, I can catch and run faster than most of the people that on the playground, and had some success at a young age. And you know how it is once you sort of find something that you're good at when you're young, and you want to keep doing it. And so I think that was it. And it just, allowed me to sort of exercise some of the natural gifts that I had early on.
Yeah. I played football nowhere near a high level, but for me, it was kind of at first, like the camaraderie with teammates and learn how to work hard and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That was really awesome too.
Yeah. And I like the uniforms, man, because before we played organized football, we would always play in the neighborhood. But I remember on Fridays, all the kids who were on a team, they would wear their little league jerseys to school. And so after a couple of years of not having one, I'm like, Dad, come on, man, we need a jersey too that we can wear on Fridays. And so that played a part in it too. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So talk about your high school career. You eventually got recruited to Wisconsin, but what was your high school career like?
Yeah. So I had a great high school program, product of Detroit Public School, Henry Ford High School. And so our head coach at that time, for my whole duration there, was a guy by the name of Mike Marshall, and he built a phenomenal program. I don't know how many players from our school went to college not just Division I schools, but everything from junior college to Division I. And I think he was there a total of over 20 years. And so, yeah, just did an amazing job and provided so many guys with opportunities. And to give you an idea of how stacked we were, my sophomore year, which was the first year I played on varsity, we had 13 guys go to play college football off that team. 13,
Wow.
most of which were Division I. We had the number one receiver in the state, right? My junior year, we had the number one quarterback in the state, the number one tight end in the country.
Wow.
Right. And then, and so just by virtue of being on that team, like a school was there every week, right, checking out these guys. So, so it gave a lot of us younger guys exposure starting off early. So,
Yeah.
so yeah.
What was the recruitment experience like for you?
Very exciting. This is before we had social media and before, it was as big as it is now. So literally coaches had to come to your school or, sit down and take the time to send you letters in the mail. There wasn't any really emails going on back then, anything like that. And so, it was exciting, man. I remember the first time I met Coach Mason, who was my receivers coach at Wisconsin, also the guy who recruited the city of Detroit. And it was spring of my junior year of high school. And I was walking down the hall. Somebody comes up to me with a Wisconsin vest on and said, "Hey, are you Jonathan Orr?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Man, we really like what you're doing on the field. I'm Henry Mason." And that started the beginning of a beautiful relationship, man. Still to this day, I talk to Coach Mason. And so yeah, it was that recruitment sort of phase was a very special time. Yeah.
I've heard a lot of stories about Coach Mason. I've been listening to the Believe in Badger podcast with Matt Bernstein.
Yep.
You were on pretty recently, and so many stories about him.
Yeah.
It sounds like a phenomenal coach.
He is a phenomenal coach and just man in general, man.
Yeah. So what led you to Wisconsin? Why did Wisconsin stand out to you?
It was, I think, a few things. One, the integrity of Coach Mason and Coach Alvarez. During that recruitment process, a lot of coaches lie. I don't know how to say it right. They lie. They tell you what you want to hear. We're going to give you the world. You're going to be All-American your freshman year. But Coach Mason was just brutally honest with my dad, with me. Hey, these are weaknesses in your game. I think I can help you here. If you come here, you probably won't play your first year. We'll probably redshirt you, give you a chance to develop. And it was just odd because, that's the opposite of what most other folks were doing. And you got to respect that. And I think my parents trusted that because it was bigger than football, right? Like they wanted to make sure if you're sending your son somewhere that you have somebody who's vested in their just overall well-being, man. And they felt like they had that in Coach Mason. It's a phenomenal university, right? Always one of the top universities in the country. Even though I wouldn't play my first year, I knew there would be an opportunity to play early. And at that time, Albie had been there about 10 years and it was obvious that he was building something special and wanted to be a part of something special. I think they had won 2 Rose Bowls, a couple years prior and Big Ten champs. And, man, it was just a good fit. It was just a great fit. For me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful campus too. I mean, it's one of a kind, right in the Isthmus there. And yeah. Awesome. So you had some pretty talented people you were playing with when you got to Wisconsin. Lee Evans was there, Brooks Bollinger. You had a ton of people make it to the NFL. Were there certain people that kind of took you under your wing when you got there, or you make some connections with some of those guys fairly early, or how'd that go?
The first guy I got connected to that's part of the program was Jim Sorgi. So Jim, he's from the Metro Detroit area, from Fraser, Michigan, and so he was having some success there. So when they started recruiting me, whenever he was home, like back home for a break or a Christmas break or something, they would send him up to the school, to my high school. And so, my high school is predominantly black, right? I'm probably 99% black. And I just remember one day, my friends and stuff was like, "Man, this is tall white dude here looking for you, man." And I'm thinking I'm in trouble like a white guy. And it was Jim, man. And he just talked and told me about the program and his experience there. And And Jim used to air that thing out, and so now I see Jim the upcoming season just throwing bombs all over the place. I'm like, yeah, I could get used to that. So he was the first one, and then on my visit, it was Lee Evans. He was my host, and ever since then, still to this day, I talked to Lee a couple weeks ago. Man, still getting advice and mentorship from Lee about life and business and things like that, and just one of the most just fiercest competitors, but just kind human beings, man, and just an awesome guy, man. And so, Brooks too. I still talk to Brooks Bollinger, man. We talked a couple weeks ago, and so yeah, it's definitely a family. It's definitely bigger than football. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like it. Seeing all the players interact still and coming back to the university for homecoming and things like that. It seems like such a family atmosphere. So
Yeah.
that's really great to see. So what was that transition like from high school to college? I mean, you were obviously on a really highly successful team over in Michigan, but coming into college had to be a huge transition, whether, it's working out, balancing school and football and all that. Can you just talk about that transition?
It was rough, Corey. Just the academic side alone, right? Like my high school, I graduated with a fairly decent GPA, but it did not prepare me for the demand and the rigor of a university like Wisconsin. And so having to juggle just the academic side alone was huge. So I couldn't even imagine having had to play as a true freshman and deal with all of that. And so that by the time I finished fall camp, so that's the academic side. By the time I finished fall camp, it felt like I had already been through a whole season of high school football. That's how worn out I was. That's back in the day when it was 2-a-days and we were hitting all the time, and I just physically was not ready either. And so that you still want to have a social life and enjoy that experience. I wasn't playing, right? So let me go down to State Street on the weekends, and so it was a lot to juggle. And actually, man, I was on academic probation after my first semester. And so within that second semester, I sort of figured out, how to navigate those waters and how to study and how to prioritize certain things. And so was able to, better manage all of that, by my sophomore year.
Yeah. Yeah, that has to be such a challenging time to come in. And I can't imagine like a guy like Braylon Allen right now coming in obviously he's 17. Everybody, comments about that. But coming in as a true freshman like that and just handling all of this is got to be just a lot to manage.
I can't even. Yeah. And they had a late season, right, in high school. So wasn't he playing like back in the spring?
Yep, he was playing in the spring. And then coming right into the Big Ten.
Right.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah. So you got some pretty good playing time your freshman year. After your redshirt, you got on the field quite a bit. That was kind of had a breakout year your freshman year. Can you talk about the experience of getting on the field and maybe walking on to Camp Randall for the first time? What was that like?
Oh, that was amazing. So even as a red shirt, you're on the sideline, and for some reason at Wisconsin, at least back in the day, even if you redshirted, you still dressed for the game and you went through the warm-ups and everything. And I think part of it was to get you used to that atmosphere, that energy. So when you do play finally, it's not catching you off guard. But it's nothing like stepping on the field from the first time, and it's so loud, it's so bright, and all these things were. I remember running through my head. We played against Fresno State, my redshirt freshman year, first game of the season, and I just remember trying to process so much, like what is Brooks saying, and okay, am I on the right side or the left side, and just trying to go through all of that. Okay, who am I blocking? But then after a series or two, it's just like practice, right? And everything slows down, and you can start to think, and you get in a rhythm. But it's special, man. It's still, when I go back now for games, you can still feel the energy, right, and the electricity that place generates in the fans. And so, it's nothing like it in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just sitting in the stands, you feel that
yeah,
electricity. I couldn't imagine jump around
yeah.
hits at the end of third quarter,
Yeah.
what that feels
And
like.
Corey, and you remember back in the day, we used to, before they had the tunnel with all of the lights. Back in the day, we used to go through the stadium. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
the fans are right there. So literally, they had a little rope, and you're walking through the stadium by the concession stands and stuff. And the fans are there. They're hitting you, smacking you on the head, and it's just yeah, it's special, man.
That's for sure. That's
Yeah.
for sure. Uh, so was it your second game then? UNLV, you had a huge game.
Yeah, I think it was the second game of the season. We went out to UNLV, which the Badgers are heading out to Vegas again
Yep. Yep.
in a few weeks. But yeah, we played against UNLV and Alvarez. This is one of the special things about Alvarez. He would always intentionally schedule certain games and things to give guys experiences because he knew some of us came from nothing, right? And we would never have these experiences again. So going out to Vegas, and he would purposely go there a day early, right? So we can experience Las Vegas, give us a little time to take in the city, scheduling Hawaii, right? Tried to schedule
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii every 4 years so that at least every player that went through the program had a chance to go to Hawaii. Just things like that, man, which are special. But we went out to UNLV. Um, yeah, Brooks and I just connected and yeah, it was. I think I had like 150 something yards and a couple touchdowns. I think it might have been 2 touchdowns,
I
something
think
like
so.
that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely a coming out game, and it gave me the confidence. Like I think the previous game I had one catch, but it gave me the confidence. Like, all right, I can play here. Like I can do this. So
Yeah, I'm sure that confidence is pretty big when you're a wide receiver in the Big Ten. You know, hitting a slant through the middle or hitting a deep fade or something.
yeah,
You got to have that confidence to secure the ball and bring it in and keep running. So
yep,
yeah, awesome. So your freshman year, you ended up, I think, somewhere around 800 yards and had a really good year. The next couple of years, your catches were pretty limited.
yeah.
Um, what what was your mindset? After your freshman year, having kind of a pretty breakout year as a freshman. What was your mindset after that? And going through the next couple of years, how did that shift or change?
Even though I had a pretty decent freshman year, the bowl game that year I had a horrible bowl game, and probably the worst game of my life, right? And so I dropped a couple balls. I was responsible for interception. I ran the wrong route, and the guy just picked it off. And so, um, like and this is before like sports psychologists and things like that, and perform folks to help you with the mental aspect of your game. Before Wisconsin had all of that, right? And we didn't even know, right? It's just you're supposed to get over stuff. But part of it was just the trauma of having such a bad game. And I carried it over into the next season, right? And so I started playing out of fear, right? Or playing not to mess up as opposed to just playing and doing what I always knew I could do. So that definitely played a role. And so Lee was back too. So some of my and I had took his role when he was out his with the knee injury my rest of freshman year, so that was part of it. But definitely, man, I just wasn't playing with a lot of confidence, and it was in large part due to that horrible bowl game I had, and so but junior year, you know, I would say somewhere during the midst of the season, I recognize it, right? Like, and I remember having a conversation with Coach Mason. I'm like, man, ever since that bowl game, I felt like I haven't been the same, man. And he was like, man, you got to get over that, right? Like this is football. You're gonna rob yourself of more opportunities, and so started to bounce back like junior year.
Yeah, that had to be tough. I mean, obviously Lee coming back, he had a great season that year, and there was less opportunities in that. But going through that, having such a great freshman year, and then for essentially like a year and a half or so, having less opportunities or things like that had to be pretty challenging. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was listening to a different podcast talking about the 2004 season. You guys were ranked fourth in the country, had a really great trajectory upwards, and you ran into Michigan State. You talk about the challenges of playing Michigan State, and I think it sounded like it may have affected just more than that game.
Yeah, that game. It's funny. I was just at a high school this past week talking to senior student athletes, and I shared this exact story, man. And it's a thing I share with my kids, and just it was a huge life lesson in it. So we ended up playing Michigan State. I think we were, like you said, ranked number 4. They weren't even ranked; they were horrible. They weren't even 500. And we go to East Lansing, and we make some mistakes early on, and before you know it, I think they're up 14-0, and by halftime, we're losing by, I think, a few touchdowns, and they end up blowing us out. I think the score was it 40 something to 14 or something like that, I want to say. And I remember after the game, on a bus, on a plane ride home, guys are blaming each other, and coaches, are arguing and stuff. And then we get to practice a couple of days later, and we're still focused on that game that we just lost instead of preparing for our next opponent. And so, you still got guys pointing fingers and folks blaming themselves. And it was just horrible. And this lasted a couple of days. And so finally, we go play our next opponent, who was, I don't remember who it was, but they were just as bad as Michigan State, if not worse. And we ended up losing that game. And now, mind you, even though we lost that Michigan State game, we still had a chance at a very special season, right? Like we still had a chance, possibly. I think some other folks left. We still could have. It wasn't the playoffs back then, but we still had a chance of potentially, being a number 1 or 2 team if we had took care of business the rest of the season. But I never forget, we lost that next game, and after the game, Coach Alvarez is in the locker room, and we're all just looking like, what in the world just happened? And he said, tonight, I want to say Indiana, right? I don't remember who it was. Tonight, Indiana didn't beat us. And everybody's looking around like, huh? He's like, yeah, Indiana didn't beat us tonight. He said, Michigan State beat us again. And then he said, never let the same team beat you twice. And what he meant by that was we were so focused, again, on the mistakes we made, on what went wrong, that it robbed us of our preparation for this next game. And so we didn't prepare the way we should have. We were still focused on those past mistakes, on losing that game, and it robbed us of the opportunity to take care of business this upcoming weekend. So I carry that in life, right? Like, we all go through hardships. We all make mistakes. We all have things done to us that shouldn't have happened, or we do things that we shouldn't have did. But so many of us let that continue to beat us, continue to hold us back, continue to rob us of present and future opportunities. And so that's just one of the many life lessons, man, that I took away from Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'm sure Coach Alvarez has a ton of things that you learned. We'll talk a little bit about that pretty soon here, but not a fun loss. Those couple losses, but definitely some lessons for sure. So kind of want to go back to your senior year. Having those couple of seasons prior where you didn't have as many receptions and things like that. What was your mindset? Were you focused on improving your game and getting to the NFL, or were you really trying to see what the next steps were?
Man, my mindset was I remember I went into Coach Alvy's office prior to senior year, and this is after he had announced that this will be his last season as a Badgers head coach. And I was like, Alvy, the last couple of years, man, my mindset hasn't been right. I'm like, I want you to know you can count on me this year. And I had made it up in my mind, like, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to get back to the love of the game, forget all this other stuff. I know I'm well more than capable of performing at a high level. I'm just going to do it. And so I went in with that mindset. So I was a lot more mature and just have fun, man. Just let it loose, and it ended up carrying over. That mindset ended up carrying over into my performance that year. Yeah.
So do you think kind of flipping that mindset, excuse me, and conversations with Coach Alvarez, Coach Mason, do you think that's what led to the success you had your senior year?
No, I think it was for one, again, like junior year, recognizing like I was in this slump and the reason why, and then getting to a place where I understood that, again, not letting the same team beat me twice, not letting a bad game, or even if I drop a pass, not letting that rob me of a future opportunity. So I learned how to get over stuff quickly. And it was just, it started with my mental focus, right, and being in the right headspace, and then yeah, it definitely helped, right, and even having those conversations with Alvy and Coach Mason to let them know kind of where I was, that definitely played a role in it too.
Yeah.
Yep.
What are some of the biggest lessons that Coach Alvarez instilled in you and the team that you still use to this day?
Man, so the one I mentioned earlier, not letting the same team beat you twice. Another one he used to always say. So we would meet the Thursday night, every Thursday night during the season, right? So we would have practice and all of that. Friday would be a walkthrough, and then we head to the plane or head to the hotel or whatever. But Thursday night was a night where the guys who were going to play, in the game, he would have a small, maybe 20-minute meeting. And just about every Thursday night, he would say, the game of football is like a pendulum, right? Pendulum swings back and forth. He was like, over the course of this game, at some point, we're going to be up high, right? And everything's going to be going well, man, and the crowd is into it. He was like, but at some point, we'll find ourselves down here at the low point. He was like, when that happens, don't give up, right? Keep going, keep fighting, because eventually you're going to be up high again, right? And at the end of the game, I like our chances of ending up high. And so life is the same way, right? At some points in relationships, at work, whatever the case is, in school, you're going to have these low points, these valley moments, man. But those who are able to keep fighting and keep pushing through it, eventually, you get up there again. So that's one that I took with me. The other thing he always used to say, like what's we can't compromise a couple things. One, we're going to be the most physical team on the field. Like, we might not be the most athletic, but we will be the most physical team on the field. He always used to say, he always used to tell stories about growing up in Pennsylvania and fights he used to get in as a kid and all this. But he was like, nobody's going to punch us in the mouth, right? Like, we're going to be the one to punch somebody in the mouth. We're going to, and so we took that mindset into every game. And even if you look at, like, we never, to this day, Wisconsin Badger football, like, we never get out tough, right? We're going to be the toughest. He used to always say, we're going to be the most disciplined team. Like, we're not going to have a lot of foolish penalties. And so all that to say, there were certain things that we hung our hat on. Like, this was our identity, right? This was our brand. And so same thing in business and life in general, right? We all need those values, those things that anchor us, right? That are the non-negotiables that won't change. And so just things like that. And cool thing, I had a chance to. I was back in Wisconsin in September, and this is the weekend before the big Barry Alvarez celebration. Mm-hmm. And I was in the office, and the guy I was walking with, he was like, "Man, Alvy's car is here." And so I'm like, "You think he's in the office?" And he was in the office, man. And I had a chance to sit with him about 20 minutes and just share my gratitude for everything that he had done for me, and the lessons that he taught us and the opportunity that he gave me, which I had never done before. I told him thanks before, but to really go in depth and share all these things with him was a special moment.
Yeah, I'm sure the legacy he's left here at the University of Wisconsin is so incredible. From obviously the coaching aspect, the lessons he's instilled into all his players, and his impact he had as the athletic director. So, such a phenomenal legacy.
Yeah.
So glad he came over here to Wisconsin.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So you ended up going to the NFL. You were drafted 6th round by the Titans. What was that experience like? What was your mindset heading into draft day, I guess?
Man, I was a little nervous. I was excited. This is something I had been dreaming about, ever since I could remember. And it was a little anxiety there. I was hearing everything from I could be drafted, I could be undrafted, a free agent, or it was some reports I was saying as early as second round, right? I think one said the Steelers were going to take me in the second round. And so what do you do with all of that information, right? It's like nobody really knows. So I'm like, gosh, we'll see, right? And then it's the other part, like, man, where will I, like, literally I could end up in 32 different
32, yeah.
places. And so it's a lot running through my mind. And so it was an exciting time. I didn't get drafted the first day. I was a little disappointed. I thought I might have a chance to, but did get drafted in the sixth round. And yeah, it was thrilled to be able to share that experience with my family and head down to Tennessee.
Yeah, down to Nashville.
Down in Nashville.
Yeah. That transition from, being an athlete in college, balancing academics and football, to you're solely focused on football, and you have a little bit more money to work with too. What was that transition like to go from, essentially like an amateur athlete to a professional athlete?
Man, good question, Corey. It's weird, man. At least for me, it was because, I mean, literally, man. Like I was on scholarship, so we got a scholarship check every month to pay rent and to do what. So I manage at the end of the month. I might have a few $100 to play with, right? After I take care of my bills and things like that. But all of a sudden, I remember before the draft, I signed with my agent and I got, he got me a few endorsements and things like that, which typical things like trading cards and stuff like that. And so before the draft, man, I'm getting checks for like $10,000 and $15,000. And I think I might have made maybe like $40,000-$50,000 before the draft. And here I am.
Wow.
Here I am, right? And with this money, it's like, what? And I had no education, right? No financial literacy education. I didn't know, do I just put it in this my UW credit union account? And so I just kept putting it in a bank, right? Didn't do anything with it. Bought a few pairs of shoes and things like that. And then you go right from that, and then you get drafted and you find out, I think my signing bonus was $109,000. I think that's what it was. And just like that, 22, 23 years old, and now I got $109,000 check coming to me, right? And which you still have football, right? Which is, and this is the mistake that a lot of guys make, young professional athletes, and I made this too. And Kobe Bryant said it best, man. They asked Kobe in an interview before. He said, "What advice?" The draft was coming up. "What advice do you give to the young guys?" He was like, "Focus on the game, right? It's going to be all these other distractions, the money, the opportunities to get involved in this and that, but focus on it. That's what got you here, right? So don't lose sight of that. And then, you can dabble with the other stuff. But so it's crazy, man. It's definitely life changing.
Yeah, for sure. And then on top of that, you're in training camp.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing against the highest level athletes
Yep.
day in and day out. What was that experience like?
That was cool, man. I felt like, again, just from camp, and I got hurt. I separated my shoulder in rookie mini camps. And so that sucks. So that kind of set me back a little bit. But before that, I felt like I was holding my own. And then the older guys come in, and then we have team OTAs. And again, I felt like I was holding my own. One of our best corners, a guy named Pac-Man Jones. And we used to go at it in practice, man. And it was, he's a former, first round draft pick. At this point, he was a star in the NFL. And we used to go at it, and I would win quite a few bit of those battles, and so that again gave me the confidence, like, okay, I belong here. And then I ended up making a team that year, made the 53-man roster. Didn't play. They were loaded. We were loaded with receivers and some guys that had been around a while, and they were paying a lot of money, and so yeah, but did make the 53-man roster. And then that following year, man, was hampered by injuries again, man. I think I had a knee thing going on. Anyway, Titans ended up letting me go. And I went out to the Oakland Raiders and tore my Achilles tendon there, which was I wasn't even there. I think I was there about 3 weeks. Tore my Achilles tendon, and then that kind of set me back. And And yeah, just rehab, and but after 6 months of rehab, uh, I, I probably could have kept going and bounced around and things like that. But physically, man, I felt like it was time for me to move on, man, and to see what else is God has for me to do in life. So
Yeah, battling injuries is tough, both physically and mentally.
hmm
The fact that you want to be out helping your team and getting better and improving, but you can't. You got to rehab and get out
yeah,
to get better and get out there. I battled some injuries in high school, which we'll talk about identity here in a little
yeah,
bit, and that's part of my conversation there. But that's tough. Um, yeah. So, what was that transition like from you know, being in the NFL to what's what's next?
that was rough. That was the hardest period in my life, right? From being a football player to no longer being a football player. And so, and then again, part of it, you go back to what your goals and expectations were. I was planning on having a long, long career in the NFL. And so even though I had graduated from Wisconsin and everything, I never intentionally thought about how I would progress professionally after football, what I would do, what I like, what I enjoy, because my life was pretty much focused on this sport. And so it was rough, man. And I struggled for a couple years trying to figure out who I was, right? Trying to figure out what else I'm supposed to be doing with my life.
Yeah, your identity was kind of consumed in being a football player from the time you were
Yep.
a little kid all the way till your early 20s, and that transition's tough. Um, when I grew up a three sport athlete. I wrestled, I played football and baseball,
Okay.
and throughout high school, or from like 6 years old till I graduated high school, and that was my identity.
Yep.
When I went off to college, I didn't do any sports or anything, and I lost my identity. I
Mm.
didn't know what to do, who I was. So that transition, just from being a high school athlete to college and beyond was really challenging for me. And I ended up just piling on weight. I gained almost 200 pounds from the time I graduated high school till about a year ago, and I've shed a little over 100 of those pounds
Wow,
now.
Corey.
Um,
Congratulations,
but
man.
Thank you. But it's the reason I was able to finally shed the weight is I really got locked into my identity
Yeah.
and who I am and who I want to be.
Yeah.
And that, with my children, I want to be a dad. That's where my identity is now. And the that's going to evolve over time,
Yeah.
as the kids grow up and whatnot. But that's where I am now. So can you talk about you can seems like you kind of went through an identity crisis in a way.
Yeah, most certainly. So I would always, ever since I graduated from high school, I would always return to my high school throughout college, throughout my stint in the NFL to encourage students to do whatever a teacher might ask me to do, just to help out. And I had been out of the NFL a few months, and my teacher asked me to come up and talk to her class. And so I'm like, yeah, sure. So I'm back in Detroit. I'm heading to the school, and normally on this ride over there, I'm thinking about my main points, the things I'm going to talk about, what jokes I'm going to tell. But I was bombarded with these negative thoughts, right, and these negative emotions that I had never experienced before. Like, man, like you let these people down. Like you're not a football player anymore. Who's going to want to listen to anything you have to say? Like your NFL career, you were a bust. Like you're a disgrace, right? And by the time I get in the parking lot, I'm sitting there and I'm convinced that these thoughts were true. And I made a U-turn in the parking lot and left. And later on that day, I remember this was a turning point. I remember thinking like, just because I don't play football anymore doesn't mean I don't matter. Like I should not be experiencing all of this, right? My self-esteem should not be shot, my confidence, just because I don't play football. And that started me on the journey for searching for, okay, I know this isn't right. This is what I'm struggling with. Why am I struggling with it? And then, how can this be resolved? And, and everybody's different, man. For me, it finally led me to the point where I understood the issue. And this is what a lot of athletes struggle with. It's that the foundation, the core of their identity, right? So the primary way in which you define yourself is athlete, when that should be a secondary, right? Like that's it shouldn't be the foundation of your identity. And so the foundation of my identity was football player, and with that, my self confidence, my self esteem, my purpose. You know what I'm saying? My just all of that was tied to being a football player. And so once it was stripped away, then that's why I crumbled, right? That's why I had this lost sense of identity. And so I got to the point eventually where I realized, man, my core identity can never be based on something I do. It can never be based on performance. And it was my faith, man, that I landed on. Like, my core identity is who I am in Jesus Christ, right? It's that I'm a child of God. That can never be stripped from me. It don't matter what job I lose, if I get fired. It doesn't matter where I find myself at in life, no matter what I'm doing. That's the foundation of my identity. And so, and now on that, everything else can be built, right? You know, business, football, you know, being a husband, being a father, you know what I'm saying? Everything else, but that has to remain the core for me. And that was so freeing. And that really gave me the stable foundation I needed to start building back.
Yeah, really glad you were able to identify that. That had to be, it can be a struggle for people to really figure out that core identity. I like that concept of it. So awesome. Yeah. Really, really great. So getting rooted in your core identity there, you kind of identified a gap too, for like student athletes in their transition on to life after sports. Was there a turning point that led you to start Athlete Transition Services, or was it just something you were building over time?
Yeah. So my experience, I noticed that during my experience and after my transition, I noticed that a lot of former teammates from college, from professionally, and not just teammates, but other athletes I knew, men and women from other sports. Some of my friends from college I stayed in contact with, a lot were having similar struggles. Like the same things that I dealt with, they were dealing with. And I started informally kind of coaching them through that process. Some of the ones I was close with, based on what I had experienced, like, you know, this is how I started moving forward, and was able to help some of them. Right. And I had always had a desire to start. I always knew I wanted to start some sort of business. And just so happens that my area of focus has always been in a nonprofit sector. And so, like, that was my major in undergrad, nonprofit management. And anyway, I went to grad school and back in 2012, and then the idea came there, like, I want to start. By this time I had been helping athletes for a couple of years. I'm like, man, I think I really enjoy helping athletes figure this out. I think I want to start some sort of business or something in this area. And I spent about a year sort of prepping for it and doing some research and just built one program. And then in January of 2014, officially launched our nonprofit Athlete Transition Services. So almost 8 years ago. And that's what sort of started me in this work.
Yeah. What kind of services does Athlete Transition Services provide?
Yep. So ATS, we provide 3 types of services. So then the biggest one that we're known for and that we help out with is our education, right? So we work backwards. So we say, okay, when athletes, well, let me back up. So our mission is to help prepare athletes for life after sports. It's simple. So we say, okay, all the research, and then even just from experiences, most of the folks that are on our team are former athletes. We say XYZ are the common challenges athletes face once they're done playing, right? So the stuff we talked about, identity, right? Career challenges, not knowing what direction to take. It's financial literacy, or lack of financial literacy. It's relationships, right? Personal stuff, mental health, right? So these are the challenges athletes face. So now, what can we start doing now to educate athletes, to empower them, so that whenever that road does end, whenever their sport does end, we've helped to alleviate those potential challenges, right? or help them to be better prepared to overcome those challenges. And so our education is based on that, right? Financial literacy, leadership development, career exploration, health and wellness, and personal development. Oh, and then what we call transition management, right? And so we all provide a number of workshops and seminars to help educate and empower athletes. So that's one service. The other two services are mental health and life coaching. So we have a team of therapists and life coaches that provide one-on-one and small group coaching and or counseling for athletes anywhere in their journey, from current athletes all the way to retired athletes. And then the last one, in our most our fairly new service, is professional development for coaches. So how do we educate coaches and empower them to better serve the whole athlete, right? To equip them so they are helping to facilitate the holistic growth and development of the athlete.
That's such a needed thing in the world right now. I definitely, like I mentioned, I definitely struggle with that transition from high school to college and nothing. So I definitely feel like the services that you provide are making a huge impact for the people that you're working with. And I want to talk a little, kind of rewind just a hair. The services that universities provide now, kind of in-house, are probably a bit more robust than they were back when you were in college. And so I'm sure you work with a lot of those folks and transition work and whatnot. So you just talk about what it was like, kind of the services that were provided back when you played versus what it is now.
Yeah, man. So the field itself is called athlete development, right? So it's a whole field now. Back when I was, just take Wisconsin, for example. Back when I was at Wisconsin, I graduated in 2006. We had no person dedicated to athlete development, right? We had academic support. We had a nutritionist. We had, I think that was about it. And then obviously weightlifting and things like that and in football. But but that was it. And now I think it's 6 or 7 people fully dedicated to the growth and development of athletes outside of just the sport, right? And so they have career counselors, they have they have therapists, right? They have mindfulness. They have Wisconsin, one of the only schools I think right now that have that has a meditation and mindfulness person on staff, right, to help with the student athletes. And so this robust sort of just department, man, to help with the holistic growth and development of athletes is awesome. And the cool thing is, man, just about every school at least has one person dedicated to the life skills and preparing athletes for life after sports, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, for sure. So I assume you attend a lot of universities and go on site and do seminars. You probably do some within the last year and a half or 2 years. You're probably doing some more this kind of Zoom type stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of challenges did that bring?
It's not as engaging, right? I guess it was an opportunity to still, even though when everything was shut down, to still be able to carry out our mission and to help athletes. So it was better than nothing, and I'm definitely appreciative for it. But I don't know. I think the biggest hurdle is, it's nothing like being able to sit in front of someone and look somebody in the eye and shake a hand and so I just think that human interaction, face-to-face interaction is the biggest hurdle. So.
Yeah, I've taught a bunch of classes, career and professional development classes virtually, and it's tough.
Yeah.
It almost feels like you're just talking to yourself in a screen.
Yeah.
And standing in front of a room and seeing those light bulb moments are just so fun. So, hopefully there's more in-person seminars and stuff moving forward for you. Yeah. So what are your goals for ATS moving forward?
Yeah, man. So the crazy thing is I've been thinking about this a lot lately. And I don't know if it's an athlete in me or what, but when people used to ask me questions like that, I used to say, man, we're going to be the number one hub for athlete development, in the world. And we're going to be international and all of this. And that's not my goal anymore, man. Honestly, I really believe that we all have a lane, right? That we're supposed to be in, and we have a purpose we're supposed to fulfill. And so my role or my goal is to make sure that ATS is providing the very best services for the things that for our lane, right? It's other folks who do other stuff. I used to view them as competition, to be honest with you. I don't anymore, right? And so now, like, we're expanding partnerships with other organizations who are in this space. And so my goal is to make sure that whatever our lane is supposed to be, that we're in our lane, that we do it to the best of our ability, and that we help as many athletes as we can. And so now it's so I guess a more practical goal now is figuring out, okay, what is our exact lane, right? And I have an idea, but want to really hone in and zero down on what that looks like, and developing a strategic plan around that, so that within the next few years we're clicking on all cylinders and everything is up to where it should be. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anything else you want to add about ATS? Otherwise, I got some rapid fire questions about Wisconsin we can dive into.
Yeah, I guess again, we're a 501c3. We do some fun and exciting work and helping to prepare athletes for life after sport. And so if you want to learn more, you can visit atscorp.org. That's atscorp.org. If you'd like to donate, it's tax deductible. Us being a 501c3, and we definitely welcome that, or volunteer in some capacity. You can reach out to us, just fill out the contact information on there. So.
Great. And they can find you on the website. They can find you on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff too.
Yep. I am _ Jonathan Orr on Twitter, on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn, just Jonathan Orr. I'm everywhere. You can just type in Jonathan Orr.
Sounds good. All right, some rapid fire questions about the state of Wisconsin,
okay.
And then I have a final question to wrap up our conversation here today. So, this is like when you're in Wisconsin. Obviously, you're over near Detroit now. So, what's your favorite restaurant in Wisconsin?
Oh, just one. I can just name one.
You can name a couple.
I can name a couple. Okay, I got to go with Ann's Pizza.
Yeah.
Ann's Pizza. My favorite wings to get in Wisconsin is at a place called Glass Nickels. Mm-hmm. Glass Nickels. I love Glass Nickels wings. My favorite sit down restaurant, and I haven't been there in a couple of years. I hope it's still open. It's a spot called Hula Hands.
Mm-hmm.
Place called Hula Hands. That's where we used to take the recruits for like a good meal, and I was always so happy when I got a recruit that weekend, because I would go, and I would tell the waitress, like, "Hey, give me 3 of these meals too to go," and then I would just take it back to the dorm. So
nice.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Second rapid fire is, what is your favorite event in Wisconsin?
Badger game. Badger football.
Yeah.
Game. Yeah.
Yeah. The atmosphere around Camp Randall is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it sure is.
I haven't been to a whole lot of other college football stadiums, but it'd be hard to beat what we have here in Madison.
It sure is. And it's something that's bigger, right? Obviously Penn State and Michigan, but even having friends that played at those places, or meeting folks who go to college games all over the place, from the SEC to just it's pretty well known that it's nothing like, and these aren't even Badger fans, but folks who have just been to Camp Randall, they say it's nothing like it. So I don't even think I'm being biased there. I don't. So
nice.
Yeah.
All right, last rapid fire question. When you're in Wisconsin, where's your favorite place to hang out?
My favorite place to hang out in Wisconsin, man, I like hanging out I love hanging out on campus. I love hanging out at the terrace. The student union right off the lake there. If it's warm, if it's like the summer, I'm not going out there in the winter, but I think, just campus, the athletic facilities, right? All of that. I think that's my favorite place to hang out.
Awesome. All right. I have 2 questions, actually. So tying back to Wisconsin in general, how do you think Madison and the University of Wisconsin helped shape you into who you are today?
Oh man, that's a good question, Corey. Man, Madison is where I literally, transitioned from a boy to a man, right? At the University of Wisconsin, arriving there the summer right after graduation. It's where I established lifelong relationships with guys that I played with coaches. Um, it afforded me an opportunity to get a world-class education and get a degree that, something I always be proud of that no one can ever take from me. And, um, just football, being able to have that experience to play football on a stage like that. Um, yeah, I met my wife there, right? Man, this is means the world to me, man.
Yeah, it really helped build the foundation
Yeah,
to who you are today.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. All right, last question for you. I ask everybody that hops on Wisco Legacy here. When all is said and done, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
Man, there's a couple things. One, uh, I had an aunt who passed away within the last couple months, and I went to her funeral, and the most awesome thing was the things that her kids said about her. My cousins, right? We're all around the same age, and and they're all daughters, and so they all stood up and shared these moments, these experiences that they had with her, and what they took away from her, and just spoke about her with such uh, just respect, man, and honor. And so one of I guess legacy goals is that those who are the closest to me, right? Like I don't want to be out impacting, athletes or leading an organization that does all this work and helping folks all over the organization, and then neglect to serve my family, right, and neglect to lead my kids in the right way. And so I want those who are the closest to me to be able to speak highly of me, man. When I'm dead and gone. And another legacy goals is I want to make sure that my wife and I are raising good human beings, right? Like, yeah, I want them to be successful, whatever that looks like, and good grades and stuff like that. But I want them to like be compassionate people, right? Like care about your neighbor. Treat people with respect. Treat people with kindness. I feel like that's something that we're losing these days, man. And so yes, I want them to accomplish things and stuff like that, but I want them to be uh, good human beings, man. And then lastly, kind of like we talked about earlier with ATS, it's this. I think it's this verse in the Bible. I think it's Acts chapter 18, verse 30, 36. I think it's Acts somewhere, but it's talking about King David, man, and everybody know King David for killing Goliath, right? And that awesome thing he did. But David made a whole lot of mistakes in his life, and the Bible is clear and transparent about it, right? But David, he never kept making the same mistake twice, and he got better and better. And then in Acts chapter 13, verse 36, I think it says that David served the purposes of God for his generation, and then he died, right? And to me, that sums up life. So when it's all said and done, whatever God put me on this earth to do, I want to make sure that I accomplish that. And I don't want to just be out here doing my own thing, chasing after money and success, and neglect what my true purpose is. And so I want to leave a legacy that hopefully the thing God put me on this earth to do, I did it. So
That's great. Those three legacy goals there. The impact you're making on student athletes, your family, and anybody that knows you is tremendous. So, anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, Corey, thank you so much, man, again for providing this opportunity. I appreciate it, man. Love to be back one day. We talk about something else if you like, but no, this was fun. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining Wisco Legacy.
Anytime.
Such a fun conversation with Jonathan Orr. Be sure to go check out Athlete Transition Services. Check out his Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn profiles. He's such a great guy. He's doing some phenomenal stuff for student athletes. So, Jonathan, thanks again for joining Wisco Legacy.